Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host DD and joining me once again today is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we will be talking about round 5 and round 6 of the Formula E World Championship that was held in Valencia. So, let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant. What a weekend. A weekend of two halves, round 5. Just pure drama in the wet. Haven't seen a more dramatic race in Formula E over the 7 seasons, and round 6 really boring but with a surprise winner nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I haven't seen Formula E so polarizing in the last few years I've been watching it. And there were 5 safety cars throughout the weekend, and all 5 were in one race. So I haven't seen a race without a safety car, even without a yellow flag, in all my time, 2-3 years watching Formula E. Certainly a very different race. Absolutely, the fact is that we were racing on a permanent circuit, a normal circuit, as to say, and
Which was the first time for Formula E racing on a purpose-built racetrack. It hasn't happened before. They always go to city centers and race on the streets. They build their own tracks, and this was definitely an experimental, I guess, an experimental race or like a race weekend that Formula E did this year.
well, we have another purpose-built circuit coming up in the Mexico round in Puebla. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but rounds like after Monaco, the rounds after Monaco. So that's another
Definitely,
header
Formula
again.
E has also announced the rest of the calendar for this season, and we'll be having 16 rounds, I believe, in total by the end of the season. So a lot more racing to look forward to. Anyway, that's for the future. We'll talk about that later. Let's dive into the biggest controversy of the weekend. Uh, we only had 9 finishers in the first race. Only 9 classified finishers. 15 cars could not even cross the finish line, and most of the cars either stopped on track, running out of energy, or just
They
went into like
exceeded.
the negative,
Yeah, yeah,
exceeded
yeah.
the allotted energy. And a lot of it's hard to like put a finger on exactly what happened, but everybody has been blaming each other. Formula E came out and said that Da Costa went too early and went too fast, which is why most of the cars did not end up having energy. Whereas Da Costa rightly came out and argued the fact that if he had gone too slow, then the teams would have protested the fact that he was trying to save energy and get it down to one lap so that he could win the race. Teams like Mercedes and Dragon Penske probably who finished on the podium per se. But what are your thoughts on what happened? And why don't you go ahead and summarize for our listeners too as to what happened and what we're exactly talking about?
If you ask me personally, I believe it's the blame has to go to the organizers and Formula E, but on their defense, I would say that they stuck to their rules. They had to reduce 1 kilowatt hour energy per minute, like per minute behind the safety car, and they did exactly that. So again, it's not very concrete whose mistake it was, but a very very strange incident, and it certainly puts into doubt. There are a lot of new fans who want to start watching Formula E, and there's a lot of hype around Formula E, but incidents like these make you question it, and it's not ideal for new fans. You know, it's very confusing for them. But yeah, so due to the number of safety cars on that rainy day in Valencia, the last safety car ended just 50 seconds, 45 50 seconds before the
Before the end of 45 minutes.
yeah. So with that time, the energy allotment was reduced drastically. They all had 1-2% energy remaining, and but they had to do 2 laps with that, because it is always 45 minutes plus 1 lap. So if you cross the line with 2 seconds to go, you have to do 2 laps. So that was the issue here, because Da Costa had to do 2 laps, but they didn't have the energy remaining for 2 laps. So that's about it.
Now, not like you said, there's been a lot of controversy, and even Sam Smith and even people who've been following Formula E for a long time have come out and said that uh, rules need to be simplified, and they've called out Formula E organizers, and they've said the fact that it like you said, it won't bring in new viewers. But in my opinion, and I think you'll agree that this is like the most Formula E thing to happen in Formula E over the last 7 seasons. But in my opinion, I think it's pretty straightforward what happened. Formula E was following the rules, and it was just a racing incident. Because if like my question is, if all the teams are so upset about what happened, and I understand the fact that Mueller, who had two drive-through penalties, and he was in the gravel multiple times, and Stoffel Van Doon, who was languishing at the bottom of at the back end of the grid, ended up on the podium. But tell me something, Nick De Vries, he had 7% left after the safety car restart, right? After the last yellow flag. So how does Mercedes-Benz EQ team finish on the podium with both cars? And Nick De Vries was not, he was fighting for the win. He was fighting Da Costa for the win. He was right behind him the entire race, and he was leading the race for a long time too, until his last attack mode. So how does someone like Nick De Vries keep up with all of these people, but yet have enough energy to finish the race with 2 laps to go?
Well, that is just how intelligent the Mercedes team is. It's their strategy. It's really their strategy, because Nick De Vries, like, we know at this track, there have been multiple comments that leading the race on this track is not the best place to be.
Now you're talking about that, but again, we saw what happened in round 6. Jake Dennis came out, he led the race the entire way, and he won from pole.
That was after the events of round 5, and they had learned. But
see, that is true. But again, Nick De Vries led most of the race yesterday, if you recall, right? So if he would have led the race even towards the end, he would have still won, because he had enough energy for good 2 laps. He didn't back off. He went full send, and he still won.
Yeah, certainly.
I mean, I can understand if the teams want Formula E to take into consideration the fact that there needs to be a rule change, and I guess rightly so, because like you pointed out, promoters or even the FE organization themselves, and even the new fans won't want a race to be ending in this fashion, where you have more than half of the grid not finishing the race. So yeah, you could change the rule in such a way that if such an event happens towards the end of the race, instead of calculating the amount of energy that Formula E will remove behind the safety car, they could take into account how much of the race distance or race time is left in order for all cars to finish, or something like that, or for the majority of the grid to finish on.
Yeah, I think that's what you said, majority of the grid, and we saw only nine cars finishing the race. Only 9 classified, and out of those 9, 3 or 4 cars at the bottom did 4-minute laps. They were literally crawling just to finish the race. So I think since it was such a big event, a lot of teams and cars were involved, it became controversial. Had it been a few cars, maybe even 2 teams, it wouldn't have become a controversy that this big.
I mean, we've seen teams not finish on a usual, what would be a usual FE race. We've seen Norman Nato over the last couple of races not finish because he ran out of battery power, and we've seen a lot of other drivers do the same. We saw Pascal Wehrlein finish second a couple years ago because he was low on energy, and all things alike. And I we've reiterated a lot of times, I can understand why fans are angry, why the organization is embarrassed. But I think, if this hasn't happened over 7 seasons, it probably is unlikely to happen again and again. But it's something that you just, there are solutions to this. And I think instead of just throwing around blame, it's time, Formula E addressed not just this concern regarding the rules, because there have been other concerns in this season that have shown up regarding different rules when drivers got penalized for not being able to use the attack mode because the race ended early, which was something that was not addressed over the last 6 seasons, and it only crept up during the first race of the season. So definitely the season has thrown a lot of curveballs for the Formula E organization, but it only matters how they resolve these issues rather than just pinning the blame on one or the other, because I think it was really embarrassing and like really defensive of Formula E to come out and tweet that that Da Costa was at fault and he crossed the line too early to start the race again. And I think it was just a communication issue, and I just thought it was kind of weird for Formula E to say that.
Yeah, certainly.
They could have just said that it was an energy management issue, which they did afterwards. But the initial reaction was definitely embarrassing.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the stance Formula E took, that this is purely based on energy management and the skills of the drivers, and like they literally tweeted, this is why energy management is capitalized the most important thing in Formula E. But as I said, had it been only two drivers not finishing, had it been a leader falling back to last and not finishing, it would have been another issue. But since it was the majority of the grid facing the same problem, it is a wider problem.
But honestly, like on a personal level, for me, it was just drama that I loved. I enjoyed every second of those last two laps, and everything that came along with it. And a lot of teams benefited with it. Like Mercedes-Benz EQ team benefited with Stoffel Vandoorne finishing on the podium. Dragon Penske probably got their first podium or second podium in Formula E, with Mueller finishing second, and Energy Virgin Racing picked up 21 points. They had been having trouble throughout the season as ever since it started, but they came back and they scored 21 points. Both cars in the points. I think the hardest hit team because of this was, in my opinion, Mahindra Racing. Both Alex Lynn and Alex
Sims.
Alex Sims. They were running in the top 5, and then they didn't finish the race. They were not classified. So I think Mahindra Racing got it the worst. But yeah, I loved it. Like, in my opinion, I totally enjoyed it, and I would not I had a good laugh. Obviously, I wouldn't want to see this happen again and again, but I had a great laugh sitting here watching it on the telly.
Yeah, certainly. As a fan who's trying to promote Formula E, I was a bit disappointed as to this happen, but as you said, it was quite entertaining at the same time.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Stoffel Vandoorne losing his pole position but still finishing on the podium. He has not had one weekend where it's been just straightforward, just like a simple uneventful weekend. This man comes in, puts it on pole, loses pole position because someone writes down a different number or a different word or something, a different letter in the documentation. Starts from 24th, comes into the points and then crashes. I don't remember exactly what happened with Vandoorne, but he was in the points, came back through the field, and then goes back again. He's in like 18th and 19th, and this drama happens, and he finishes on the podium. And now he's sitting second behind his teammate Nick De Vries in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, certainly. Stoffel Vandoorne has had a rollercoaster of a season, but I think he's one of the strongest title contenders. Mercedes do have the strongest team. Stoffel has been consistent, quite consistent, but certainly a very strange issue. I mean, the Mercedes team boss called it a fat finger issue. Like just a mistype, and it was not like they wrote a completely different number. It was just one digit out of hundreds of digits. Absolutely strange.
But I think Stoffel Vandoorne ruined his race. Again, he started towards the back of the field on during round 6 of Valencia this morning, and then I think he just bended with being a little too eager, attacking Sebastian Buemi into the corner and putting himself into the wall. I think he could have had a couple points, not much, but even then, I think Stoffel Vandoorne ruined his race today.
Yeah, it was quite a boring race, so every bit of action was welcome.
Yeah, that's true. I can't argue with that. But yeah, let's talk about Jake Dennis next. Puts it on pole, and then takes it home, like no issues at all, drives a clean race, and everybody thought, nobody wants to lead this race, like you said, because energy management will be a big issue, and obviously that made it a really boring race. No one even though Jake Dennis had slowed the entire pack down for the first half of the race, nobody wanted to take the lead from Jake Dennis and make moves. Everybody just wanted to like be in the slipstream and just like follow him around the entire time. However, Jake Dennis still took his car home in first place, and I think that was a brilliant race from Jake Dennis.
Yeah, definitely. And as a rookie, for him to win in a essentially underperforming car, because the BMW has not been at its best lately, so a brilliant performance. But let me just say, I'm not taking anything away from Jake Dennis. He drove a brilliant race, but we saw all 6 cars from Group 4 qualify for Super Pole due to a drying track, and so that did play a factor, but a brilliant race nonetheless from Jake Dennis.
That again, that just brings forward the issue that the entire Formula E paddock has had with the qualifying format that Formula E has. But again, Formula E has that format to create the exact results they created today. Not as drastic results where the entire last group, like Group 4, goes into Super Bowl, but definitely somewhat like this, right? So I think Formula E would have been pretty happy with the qualifying results, even if the teams were not. And yeah, the drivers have been complaining about those rules again, and I think Lucas Di Grassi comes out again and again every time there's a rule issue or something like this happens, and he's been urging Formula E for the last however long he's been in the sport for. I think ever since the start, and he's been urging them to change the rules for qualifying and such. But how was the weekend for you overall? What did you think about Formula E going to a purpose-built track? And what are some things that Formula E needs to take care of to make the racing more interesting there? Because honestly, the race in the wet, insane. The drivers were going for it. Everybody was just full sending it, regardless of it being a wet track, regardless of energy management issues. No one was really thinking about it. And I thought round 5 was some great racing, and I was totally for Formula E to go to more of such racetracks. But round 6 showed us a different picture of what could happen at a racetrack like Barcelona with long straights, and energy management issues.
A racetrack like Valencia, but
Valencia. Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, as you said, a weekend of 2 halves. So going into Valencia, going into this weekend, I was very excited for Formula E to try out a purpose-built circuit, and we have seen silly crashes and people going into the walls on the streets in Formula E, and it would have been a welcome change that such things won't happen. A circuit like this showed us that racing, wheel-to-wheel racing in Formula E is possible if we have different technical regulations. Because I think we saw Lucas Di Grassi, and I'm not sure who he was racing, but they did go wheel to wheel, and they did push each other off track and take the runoff area, which is the kind of racing we enjoy. Because had it been a street circuit, they would have been in the wall. But
yeah, and I absolutely agree with you that just the fact that the walls aren't there made the drivers be like even more aggressive on track. And we saw a lot of drivers who beached it on the gravel, or went onto the gravel and lost places, but then again they came back and they went hard once again. And I think the biggest issue that I guess people were having and the teams were having was the fact that there wouldn't be as many energy regeneration points, especially with fast straights. The car would have a lot of it would burn a lot of energy. So I think Formula E could get around that fact, either like the way they did by putting chicanes in there to help the teams regen some energy, or just by choosing purpose-built track layouts that cater to Formula E rather than other sports. Have shorter straights on the track or something like that. Maybe I know Les Castellet in France, where F1 goes, it's usually a boring race, but they have so many layouts. So maybe Formula E could go there and experiment with some layouts that are much shorter than tracks like Valencia and don't have as long straights. But in my opinion, I would definitely love to see Formula E go racing on purpose-built tracks too. I know the Formula E's message is about sustainability and make it an electric future for urban cities and urban transportation. But nonetheless, I think the racing on the track was pretty great, except in round 6 because of obvious issues regarding energy management. I think the biggest let's talk about the biggest losers of the weekend. Jaguar Racing Team. They were leading the championship after round 4, and now they're sitting second, which is not bad, but they have a 23-point deficit to Mercedes EQ Formula E team, coming out with 0 points from round 5 and round 6. What happened there?
Yeah, I think we saw in qualifying in round 5, they qualified lower down the order, even though they were Group 1 runners, and that was expected, but they were quite behind their Group 1 counterparts. It was something to do with the chassis and not being able to fully utilize the street circuit, purpose-built circuit, and the chassis being restricted to a street circuit type performance. But yeah, it was quite strange and quite unfortunate for them to lose out. And they Mercedes is now leading the championship with 23 points.
Yep.
And Mercedes has been arguably the fastest car in Formula E right now.
The fastest and the most efficient car on the track.
Exactly. And the drivers themselves have been sensational. Nick De Vries has 2 wins, Bandon has a win, and so I think this is going to be a crazy season, but Mercedes for now have taken the upper hand.
Definitely, and the driver championship is pretty close even now. Nick De Vries sits on 57 in first position with 57 points. Stoff Bandon on second with 48. Sambird and Robin Franz on third and fourth with 43 points each, followed by Mitch Evans and René Rast with 39 points each. René Rast had a good race in round 6, but fell behind, lost a few places because of energy management issues as he had made his way through the pack. And then John Erkovan sits in 7th on 33, along with Jake Dennis, surprisingly so. And then Eduardo Mortara and Pascal Wehrlein sit in 9th and 10th on 32 points. So just 25 points separating the top 10 drivers. So, it's a close championship after 6 rounds and we have 10 more to go. A lot of racing coming our way, and I'm excited to see how the season turns out, honestly. And to add to the fact, you talked about technical regulations and racing on purpose-built tracks. Gen 3, we're moving to charging, and I hope that the change in technical regulations that come along with that Gen 3 cars and the charging technology will bring us closer to race, give us better races on purpose-built tracks too.
Yeah, certainly. I was coming to that only. So we have Formula E has a great potential right now to correct all these
Mistakes.
Mistakes and all these cover up all these gaps they have right now. And if they can incorporate fast charging, it would certainly encourage drivers to drive fast. And we can race on purpose-built circuits with long straights and fast corners. So I'm pretty excited for Gen 3 in that regard. But let's see what direction they take.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm forgetting what the next round is. I'm just blanking out right now.
Monaco.
Oh yeah, Monaco. And Monaco is an interesting one again because in our next episode regarding Formula E, we'll be talking about how F1 and FE are talking about a joint weekend, and Monaco will be a point to consider. So, to our listeners, stay tuned for that episode too. Any closing thoughts from you, Vedant? I don't have anything more to talk about regarding this weekend.
Yeah, I think just the fact that Formula E has I hope that Formula E management are open to criticism, and they can take all these criticism and all these talking points and make a better product and improve the product. as such and improve the racing. But we have seen from the Formula E management over the years that they are not as open. They want to stick to the to the things they have. But with Gen 3 coming in, we can only hope that they make some changes.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. Well, Vedant, thank you for joining me here, and thank you to our listeners for listening to us talk about Formula E. And we'll catch you on the next one.